can you hear us? Are you still with us? Can we just have great? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, sir. We are now opening. What a very nice presentation of the education. Regarding students are the very potential method, and as per the method target, against the target of 6 crore, about plus in this category, and we are very taking behind under the rooftop category. Very potential sectors, target is 40 gigawatt, and we could achieve about 3.2 gigawatt, that is up to 10%, and we have to achieve about 40 gigawatt by 2000. Mr. Abhishek has already been detailed how to achieve it. In fact, most of the regulatory authority has already rolled out the regulations with the consumer friendly regulation. Very potential sector to get the reliable power, quality power, and reducing transmission losses of the distribution company. Every distribution is very active. Of the issues are that is the power quality, the TV low cost is already. As per our state regulations, 2 hours and 1 kilowatt and home system as per their contract demand, and housing capacity that is discussing about that. That meeting is all in the I think only the student may be solved for the connectivities in the domestic sectors. In this sector, as per the prescription of the guidelines. I think this is from my side. Great, thank you, Mr. Jain. But sometimes you're not proper audible. You break always out when you move your head so fast, because apparently you're very excited over what you're talking about. So therefore, we could not hear everything and anything, and I had to ask more questions. Maybe you can briefly introduce yourself to the audience. Greta is leading the nation when it comes to solarizing cities. Correct. Now we are. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. I'm not talking this topic. I am implementing agency impacted on the Facebook program. Your voice is not getting better. You're still coming in and out. And it's hard to hear. So not sure what to do except for getting to one of these headsets connected to your laptop, and then might be better audible. I understand that Greta is the state nodal agency, and you implement in conjunction, in cooperation with the DISCOM, the phase 2 rooftop scheme. What I'm referring to is a recent call 6 months ago by Honorable Prime Minister Modi to solarize at least one prominent city per state in India. So we have 29 states, 29 cities. will go 100% solar. We call them Modi cities or solar cities according to a new scheme. The scheme is being developed by M&IE. If I would be a Discom today in this call, in this webinar, listening in to that scheme, I would be scared because so much solar coming to a distribution grid might be a challenge. How did you manage under your guidance so much solar? Can you share some of your challenges? We only have 100. Hello, everybody, my voice, please. Occasionally, you're going in and out, in and out. I would not consider this a power outage because sometimes we can hear, sometimes we cannot hear you. A headset would be great if you had a small headset or something from your cell phone. Okay. I try my Okay. Then I will pause you for a second and turn my question to Dr. Tröster. Dr. Tröster, you are sitting comfortably in Germany on a sunny day, cold temperatures, no electricity being needed. A lot of heat is being needed now in the cold season of Germany, and yet the solar production is very high in Germany. So we are seeing penetrations sometimes which go over 100%. So we have actually an excess amount of solar already in Germany on certain days, sunny days, cold days. How is Germany dealing with that excess amount, and what do you hear from the municipalities, the utilities on balancing an overproduction of solar or wind? Because we have so much. So I think we are now at 80 plus gigawatt combined solar and wind in Germany, with a total load of maybe 120 maximum, 115 gigawatt depending upon. So how is it being managed in your country, sir? So thanks for the question. We are 100 gigawatts plus with solar and wind, so it's even more. But you're right that we have a very high share on certain days. For example, in May when it's cold and the sun is shining, we now have November, so it is actually going down a bit today. If I look outside, it's pretty cloudy. So not too much solar today, but I believe we have quite a lot of wind. Yeah, so it's a very nice combination in Germany to have wind and solar combined. Because during the winter time we have a lot of wind, and during the summertime we have solar. That's a quite nice combination, we have to say. What I like about India is that the seasonal variation over the year is not as much as in Germany from a solar perspective. So you more or less, of course, there is the monsoon season, but you more or less have a pretty steady availability of solar power during the day. We try to compensate that bit with wind power. The solution from a technical point of view is grids in many cases at least. So we have a very strong interconnection to many other countries, neighboring countries, also to Scandinavia, for example, where we can use hydropower. So therefore we can shift power from different countries or to use it in different countries, and therefore reducing the conventional power plants. Nevertheless, we also have the situation that we have the feed-in tariff. So every kilowatt hour then of solar has to be used. Basically, this can also lead to negative prices. So that basically means that we are giving electricity to our neighbors for free, or even paying them for taking the electricity. But we are working on this, so we are improving these situations so that it is not getting that expensive. But I think everybody is proud here actually to have such a high share, and many people do believe, and same for me, that we actually need to increase even more. We need to have more in order to reach our targets for reducing or limiting basically the the temperature rise below 2 degrees or even to 1.5 degrees in the world. Further, of course, we have quite nice conventional power plants which are quite flexible, so they can actually adapt to the situation of solar. We're getting more and more storage into place, but it's still limited, so there's more PV and wind is actually possible before we need more storage. And on the long run, we are now talking of also about hydrogen because we need a seasonal storage, and hydrogen is now the big topic we are discussing currently.
Okay, thank you. A quick follow-up question for you. When you look at Abhishek Ranjan from BSES, he's still not full of gray hair. Some slight here and there. So his stress level may go up as renewables may be added. What do you see? What have you seen with your utilities under distribution level? Yeah. What did the typical utility in Germany, like a municipal company of Darmstadt, what did they have to deal with in terms of investments into people, in terms of upgrading their grid? What do you think? What do you have seen in the past 10 years of now 20 years of EEG, the Renewable Energy Law of Germany? What have you seen these utilities had to do urgently? What was your main, hand-holding with them?
So first of all, we had a very good starting point when we started to integrate or to have a higher share of renewables, because the grids in Germany have been very strong from the very beginning onwards, because the idea was basically to use it for heating. So they have put quite a lot of copper into the ground because the idea was to use electricity much more for heating. Eventually, this has not been the case. Therefore, the strong grids were there, and they could be used then to have a high share of renewables and integrate without really having to do a lot. Nevertheless, of course, especially on the countryside, not so much in the cities, but on the countryside where there are large rooftops and with a good feed-in tariff, we have seen basically that the roofs have been covered, and then suddenly we had villages which had 600, 700% PV penetration. So they had, of course, then to exchange the transformer in order to get the renewable production, the PV production, towards the overlaying grid and then transport it to the next city, basically, for consumption. So yes, there has been quite a lot of investment also in the grids. Nevertheless, of course, we had a very good starting point with very strong grids from the very beginning, due to historical reasons, basically. And of course, now this is getting to a limit, and people are thinking about like smart grids, about wide area control using reactive power. Volt VAR is very, very common now to use the inverters basically for voltage control. Unload tap changer in the north of Germany, there are distribution system operators now rolling out OLTC for distribution transformers. So on the very low voltage levels, others like the ones in Darmstadt say far too expensive, we don't need it. So it's actually a question of what's your feeling on what you could use it for, but seems not to be, from my perspective, also not to be the necessity there. So many solutions out there. You have seen them. There's a long list basically, and all of them have some advantages, disadvantages. So it's not the silver bullet there how to deal with it.
Yeah. So one more. I will dig a little bit deeper with you before I let you go on the topic. For Abhishek Ranjan, it could come very expensive if the schedule is deviating too much over a day. Even I think in India the regulation now to report every 5 minutes or 15 minutes. Maybe Abhishek can speak about it. Yeah. How is it done in Germany? The forecasting, is there balancing done and on the distribution level? Are your discounts in Germany have to undergo every 5-10 minutes, or they have any kind of scheduling routines the way Abhishek is sweating every day? or is it basically an automated system because of some SCADA in place? And yeah, can you share some?
Yes, of course, SCADA plays an important role to have a good overview on what is actually happening. In the past, actually, they didn't really care a lot about this, and there was kind of, just how much is there more or less, and off it goes, and it was very rough estimation, but there is more and more requirements now coming into place to have a good forecasting also on the distribution level in order to have a better handshake between distribution system operator and transmission system operator, so they actually know what will be what they expect to be then delivered from the distribution system into the transmission system. In former times, this was purely the transmission system operator who took care of that. He had different forecasting methods which he then combined. We need to think about smoothing effect. That means basically forecasting is much simpler if you are on a very large area compared to forecasting a single plant, for example. And of course, from a power system perspective, actually this large area is normally sufficient to say, okay, I need to do balancing and so forth. Nevertheless, we are now coming into a situation to request also good forecasting for distribution system operators to handle basically the between TSO and the DSO better. Yeah, so it's now actually coming.
So, and it's coming also on the DISCOM level, so on the small utility, municipal utility level.
Yes.
Okay, great. Good to know. That is a service we will then be able to offer also to DISCOMs we have in India. Abhishek, I have a lot of questions for you from the audience, 17 of them. I will not ask all of them. And my apologies for it has to do with your presentation, I guess. I don't know if it's because also of Dr. Tröster, but I will ask you a majority of questions. The first one being very easy maybe to answer, how would it, in the long term, open access issues for corporate PPAs with the DERC? So is open access to you additional benefit as a distribution operator or not?
Okay, so open access and rooftop solar may not be linked. If you ask which more beneficial, rooftop solar is definitely beneficial compared to open access. Now, if you talk about open access regulations as a standalone thing, what does it mean is whichever consumer more than 1 megawatt consumption can source supply from any other source other than distribution. That is simple in words. Now, there are certain charges to be paid by connectivity to the grid, billing charges, like other charges. There are 3 or 4 open access charges which are there. Cross subsidy, billing, additional surcharge, and one more charge, a temporary charge. The 4 charges which are being paid. Now, definitely, this is not adding up to the cost of serving them as far as ARR or annual revenue requirement is concerned. Therefore, if these consumers who are going to open access that are not sufficiently mitigating that, and that there is a loss in the ARR, which may result into regulatory aspects. The retail tariff generally doesn't increase.
Yeah, makes sense.
Therefore, we are saying that it is not. But if you give a choice, open access versus rooftop solar, definitely rooftop solar is.
Great. Next 2 questions. The cost of demand aggregation for a DISCOM. So aggregating. So you're a progressive DISCOM. You said yes to solar. I mean, Delhi is also the capital of India. So and some reports suggest that Delhi could be a 2 gigawatt rooftop city. So not the sky is blue, but the roofs are blue. Yeah, in Delhi. So what is it for you? Cost of demand aggregation. Is there a cost you will see, or you can share your experience on creating consumer awareness I remember seeing you numerous times in demand aggregation events over weekends in Delhi, big venues, 800,000 people sitting in the audience, and at the end signing up manually for an interest form on rooftop because they were able to listen to your speech. So Abhishek Ranjan is instrumental to draw and convince people to convert or to invest into solar, where electricity prices are relatively low. As you mentioned it earlier, compared maybe to the Western world, our country, Germany, here the private consumers pay the high share of the electricity prices, and the industrial side is half of that, because they don't pay taxes. So in India, it's the reverse. And how do you explain that to somebody paying already low or consuming low units to invest into solar rooftop because it benefits you? So, I mean, can you share your experience and your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So first of all, demand aggregation has been very, very targeted, and we have been fortunate to have nearly the ecosystem in terms of stakeholders, like starting from the government of India and the government of India as supporting policy. Then partners like you and others who are shaping up the ecosystem in the World Bank etc. program. And finally, my teammates who are with us as a teamwork and making modules.
아유. 목표 태교. 축구로. खाइले दिया तो क्या मैं खाती चावल खाओ क्या चावल खाना थोड़ा क्या खावा मोरा खावा ताकि
We have our own dedicated website and other digital means of collecting that. So the cost of demand aggregation has not been very, very high. It's not like very expensive modes, like, for example, newspaper advertisement, hoardings, TV ads, or ads in the subways or metro trains, etc. We are not doing that. Without that, we are losing. Okay, those things are very expensive. So we are, other than that, for example, social media is there, emails, SMS campaigns, which is a cost, but that is very costly. WhatsApp messages, WhatsApp is very popular here. People are using WhatsApp as a very important tool. Then our the templates and pamphlets that we have, solar booklet, and 2-pager, 3-pager estimate of savings, electricity. People want to know how much I'm going to save this month. So we have our system, which we are able to churn out immediately based upon the next of on it. Okay, so that is how the cost of demand aggregation is not very, very high as of now. Yes, they are having some challenges where there were difficulties in convincing people. Why? Because there was set up who was pro solar and not in favor of the solar, correct? Because they had doubts. But then it paid off. So maybe 3 times, 4 times, even people visit one of their general body meetings also. They invited us. So we went there to, rare occasions are there, but we visited them to satisfy them.
Abhishek, one last question because we're a little bit beyond our scheduled time. As I said, I have several questions for you. Some of them I can address tomorrow and the day after. For instance, viability of replacing diesel gensets, experience of Abhishek Ranjan in Delhi with adding solar and storage, things like this. So I will avoid this and postpone it more in the long list. But one question kind of sticks out, and since you are not necessarily a public company, you are also a private company. If nobody else could answer that question, so I would ask it: what is the current impact on economics of PV in view of the Indo-China political issue? So these Indians and the Chinese hitting each other in Ladakh, Jammu and Kashmir, that has an impact on the overall trade with China, and it is impacting solar apparently. Do you see that impact also at your solar rooftop tenders? We just finished, I think, 20 megawatts. So is there an impact?
Yeah, so that was 30 megawatt tender in Delhi. Very big one. Yeah, June or early July. Then after that, all these kind of things happen. So far, we haven't seen any refusal from our inbound vendors to install the prices we discovered that. So if actually we are seeing any impact, we'll see that impact only in the next tender next year possibly. But then as far as MRI is concerned, and they have been taking monthly reviews also as so there they have said that even the cell manufacturing has started in India. So that way the impact has to be mitigated. Apart from the assembly of the panels, they are also talking about cell manufacturing in India. They said that they have some list they want to share with us or DCR content anyway. Essentially, the DCR content was mandated anyway for this program. So Chinese thing might not impact very heavily this one. But then apart from this, there is another market. In your area, southern area, we recently launched one program. We said that you have need to order solar rooftop. You choose your panels, you choose your vendors that way. So there, of course, people are paying for quality, much more superior quality and features, aesthetic features, etc. So there also, I don't think there is any impact of the China impact. Other than Chinese panels, from other parts of the globe, can also find a market over there, which is a non-subsidized market, and we are getting some interesting results. So they have now what we think is solar is no longer a commodity. Solar is also a kind of product, and you could have product categorization and customer categorization based upon what kind of solar you want.
That is the answer I expected. I presume. So, folks, thank you very much. In light of the time and in light of two additional days of discussion on this topic, integration of renewable energy, variable fluctuating renewable energy into Indian distribution grids, I will close for today by thanking you, Mr. Tröster, Dr. Tröster, coming in from Germany. I think we're going to hear you one more time on business models for distribution companies,